Wonderful. So welcome, Melissa. So great to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having us here today.
Yeah. I'm going to just let you and do your thing, and then Brad can ask you some questions, and we'll go from there.
Great. Well, my name is Melissa, and I'm with the Nasdaq OneReport team here. And I'm going to share my screen here so I can share a little information about who we are. Let's see if I can do this. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. So a little about who we are. The Nasdaq OneReport platform is an ESG software platform. We were acquired by Nasdaq earlier this year, but we have been operating in this space since 2003. So we realized very early on that there was some things happening with all of these requests from all of these different frameworks and rating organizations. And we set out to build a platform that would really help companies simplify the management of all of that disclosure of the qualitative and quantitative data requests that were coming their way. Over the years, we've really built strong relationships with all of these various frameworks and rating organizations. And, our goal is to really assist companies create a central repository for all of their ESG data, as well as assisting them with the management and disclosure of that data. We are GRI certified, CDP licensed, SASB licensed, and EU and Global Compact publisher. And we do work with companies of all sizes in multiple sectors and wherever folks are at in their ESG. Report is just one product out of many products in the ESG space that NASDAQ has available. And those are all shown here on this slide. One other product that I like to point out is that we do have an advisory arm. So with companies who are looking for some one-on-one consulting and help with determining their materiality or their benchmarking, this is a great team of people who can certainly assist you with that. The Nasdaq OneReport tool works really well with them in that once everything has been identified, we can help you get that work done. You don't need to work with advisory either. The OneReport tool can be more of a self-service way of getting this work done as well. And then also for this audience today, for anybody who's just getting started in this space, or even if you've been in this space for a while, we do have an ESG reporting guide out on the NASDAQ website. This is a free guide, and it's definitely worth the read if you got some time. All right. So a little bit about who we are. We do work with all of these leading frameworks and rating organizations. So these are just a few of the folks that we work with. But just sort of an overview of what we do with these organizations is that we go out and we collect all of the data requests that they're seeking. So whether it's environmental, social, governance, we take all of those data requests. We integrate them into our platform. And then what we do is we start identifying any kind of commonalities amongst those various metrics that are being asked so that we can start putting those metrics into one data request instead of several. So you only have to answer those questions once and then make them available to multiple organizations. So really trying to cut down on some of that survey fatigue that we hear a lot about out there. And then once all of those data requests are in the platform, then our clients come in, they answer the data requests, and then once everything's complete and approved, they have the ability to output that data in a number of different ways. So if they're responding or reporting to a framework, we work with all of these organizations differently, but we know how they like to receive information, so we can assist there. Maybe they're getting an investor request for a particular data point, and we can help them with that as well. Or maybe they're just looking to create some reports that they can make publicly available for disclosure. So really what this platform does, when you go out and you ask our clients and ask them what type of value they see in the OneReport platform, they've come back to us and identified four main pillars. The first one is really about education. Inside of the tool, we've built in a number of educational resources to help you really explore each of these frameworks and rating organizations. Easy access, so you never have to leave the platform. The second value, which is probably the biggest value value our clients see is that we've created a workflow system that really helps you assign out each and every data request to the person who's the best person to answer the question. And it's not even just getting someone to answer the question, but making sure that there's then somebody who needs to approve it can also look at it. So there's a great feature in there that allows companies to collect data and collaborate on that data as well. The third value proposition that we hear a lot about is the ability to respond and report out to all kinds of folks. So whether it's your stakeholders, the rating organizations, just different ways to deliver this data in a way that's efficient and streamlined. And then lastly, also the ability to publish all kinds of data, and then just as important, preserve the data inside of the platform so that you always have a historical record right there where you need it. So if there's a question or a data point, we can easily show that to you. So here is just an example of one of the many things that our OneReport platform does. This is our main customized page, and this is where you'll find a lot of our educational resources built in. So you'll see here that we have all of the organizations that we work with listed here down this left-hand side. And say I wanted to understand a little bit better about who Sustainalytics was. I could just click on this overview tab, and it's going to bring up all the information about this particular rating organization, their profile, their methodology, who their clients are. So again, you don't need to leave the platform to find out this information. But what may be more important to you is what kind of data is this organization looking for? So each of these organizations have a link to their data requests. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up the whole list of data that this particular organization is seeking. So really good information here. The other tool that's very useful for a lot of our clients is our matrix. So this tool allows you to actually evaluate different rating organizations and frameworks in terms of the type of information that they're requesting. So I can simply go in here and select a few of these organizations. And when I hit generate data request, what the system is now doing is pulling in all the data requests from these organizations that I have selected, and it's identifying where there is some overlap in those types of requests. So here you'll see on market served, it's a GRI question, but it's also being asked for by ISS and ENS, and so on and so forth. So what this allows you to do is say, well, if I'm already completing GRI, have I already started to complete the information that's being requested by other frameworks and rating organizations? Or the flip side of that is, if I do this new framework or rating organization, there is no overlap, so it's going to be a harder lift to get it done. And then I have to evaluate as to whether that is so another great tool to use here. Once you've selected all the frameworks and rating organizations you want to work with, then that's where you get to assigning out the individual data requests. Great. So what I might do is, just because I think it's important that you see the matrix, I didn't realize that you weren't seeing that. What you would do here is simply select the various frameworks and rating organizations that you're interested in. And then when I go down here and hit generate data request, it's going to pull in all the data requests from all of those organizations that I just selected. And this is where you can start seeing the overlap between one organization and another. So for example, if I go down here, you'll see this data request on committees is being asked for by ISS ENS. It's being asked for by ISS Governance. It's being asked for by MSCI, and it's being asked for by Sustainalytics. So if I went into the OneReport platform and answered this data request, I'd be providing information for all of these frameworks. So this is a really useful tool for a lot of our clients to be able to plan and evaluate which of the frameworks work best for them. So if I move to the Assign tab here, this is where you can start assigning out all of the data requests. So you'll see here all of our data requests are listed on the left-hand side. And what we've done is created 5 different roles platform to help you manage this data. So each individual data request can be assigned out to an administrator who would be the person who is responsible for getting the data done and getting it into the platform, but they may not be the best person to provide the data, so they can assign it out to an editor on their team. Then once the information is in, they can assign it for somebody to approve it, and then they can assign it out to somebody who just needs to come in and review it and potentially make comments if they're seeing something that doesn't look right to them. The viewer role is just somebody who can come in and watch and see what's going on. So this is a great way to start organizing all of these data requests, make sure they're getting assigned out to the right people to provide the information. All of those people would come in and they enter the data here inside of this platform. So all of your data is now stored in this central repository. And we make it really easy to assign people to this, to their data assignments. So you can actually sort the data by topic. So if you wanted to sign out all the diversity questions, the head of HR, you'd type in diversity and you'd see here, yep, governance is probably for them, but biodiversity probably isn't. So it's a great way to just kind of categorize the data requests that you have. You can also decide that you just want to work on a particular framework. So sometimes our clients do that. And the reason why you're not seeing anything is because CDP doesn't have any diversity questions. Definitely different ways to slice and dice the information to get it done. So just to show you what a data request looks like inside of our system, so you can get a sense of how this works. We'll go here. This is information on employees and other workers. And what you see here at the top is the name of the data request. You'll see who's been assigned to it, the status of this data request. So this is in progress. And then you also see who was last in here, what date and what time. You can also click on this activity log and get a sense of all the inside of this particular data request. So this is great from an auditing standpoint. This next section will tell you what type of data is being requested as part of this data request. And then this section called guidance notes, you'll see that all of these organizations are looking for this information. Now, what we know is that it may not always be apples to apples in terms of the type of data each of these folks are looking for. So that's why we provide these guidance notes. So you can look at each individual organization on their own, but this provides you the guidance inside of that data request to let you know what you need to provide in order to meet the needs of each individual framework and rating organization. So as I go down here, you'll see that this platform does have some historical data already populated into it. So they either carried it over from the previous year, or else we can also pre-populate data for you. But this allows you to really see if there are any significant changes from one year to the next. So here you'll see that we actually did have an increase in male employees, and that might be significant to a framework or rating organization. So you have the ability at each individual data point to provide additional context as to what might have been happening here. So these comments can be made public, or you may say, you know what, I don't think that information is correct. I'm going to send a note to the person who completed it and just make sure that we're pulling the data from the correct place. So internal notes are never shared publicly. So as we move down here, you're also going to see there's going to be some requests for some qualitative data. So we have these text fields built in to be able to provide answers. And if I click on this button here, you're going to see that there's some basic formatting capabilities in these fields, and it will also track changes as well. So you can do that. You also, we have drop downs that we've embedded where it makes it just quicker and easier to answer the question. And at the end of every data request, you can leave additional comments, either broadly, or you can add one that's specific to a particular organization. We also have embedded into this platform reference library. So this is where you can start building your repository of all those documents that you need to support all the metrics and data that you're providing. So here you'll see whether it's Excel spreadsheets, whether it's their annual report. You can also store URLs here. to be able to share with folks as well. So in the data request, you can actually associate any of that additional supporting documentation as well. So as you would move through this whole process here, you would finally get to this stage where you need to make the data available. So we have what we call our release page, and this is where you decide, what information you're going to make available and to which organization. And then lastly, and I'm sorry I'm moving quickly, but get a few other things in here that may help you understand how this platform can work. Each of those data requests that you saw can become their own URL. So our IR folks really like this because occasionally you get that request from an investor who wants to know a specific piece of data about your organization. So here you can make each data request either locked or shareable. So that's up to the person managing the platform. But say an investor calls in and wants to know about the scale of your organization, you could simply just copy this link and embed it into an email. And then when the person gets it in the email and they click on it, it's going to take them back inside the OneReport platform and give them the information that they've requested. So that's a real easy way to really access exact data for folks. We also have a Gri Publishing Tool. So if you go in here and you use the OneReport platform to answer all of those GRI questions that are relevant to you, you could go here, select some basic color and font to match your brand, and then you'd hit publish, and what you get is this URL. And you can take this URL and you can embed it in your website or in reports. An example of one of our clients who does this is Lockheed Martin. So if you go to their site and you click on their GRI report, you'll see here it's pulling from the OneReport platform, and this is what you will get. So you don't need to do anything beyond entering the data to generate this index. Okay, so really those are the main features of the site. We do have the ability to create PDFs in a lot of different ways as well. But for the sake of time, I think I'll stop here and see if there are any questions.
Thanks, Alyssa. So first of all, really, really cool to see. I mean, obviously your organization started probably before most of the business community was even considering these things, right?
Yeah, it was SRI at first. I believe we were SRI and then CSR, and now we're ESG.
and of course, I love that, the name of the platform and the company is, evokes, of course you had it first, but evokes Bob Eckel's famous book on the OneReport, on integrated reporting. So I had a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So obviously, this is obviously a very powerful tool. I think when you look at some of the concerns you often see from CFOs and members of the finance and accounting team is a concern about, okay, is this data that perhaps a sustainability team, a sustainable business team that's outside of F&A is pulling numbers and sharing information and preparing reports and that kind of thing. They worry about things like the single source of truth. I thought maybe you could talk a little bit. I think you touched on data lineage and sort of data governance issues built into the capabilities of your platform. But maybe talk a little bit more about that. As the non-finance and accounting folks are dealing with data requests, that they are making sure that there's this connection and reliability.
Right, and so as I demonstrated on the platform, you have the ability to not just assign the person who's going to provide the data. So that data could come from any department. So the person who's the best person to provide that particular data point, you can assign it to them, but it doesn't stop there. You can also then assign that same data point over to somebody to approve it. So it could be the CFO, it could be a legal team. You can have as many users in the platform as you would like. So we do provide those different roles to make sure that the data is not just provided, but the right folks are looking at it to make sure that it is the correct data and okay to be disclosed publicly.
Great. And can you elaborate a little bit more on the various types of outputs available, and if they're also internal as well as some of the external examples like you gave for GRI? In terms of like the format and things, yeah.
Yeah, so we do have, like I said, each of the data points and data requests are a live URL. So very easy to share those either internally or externally. We do have a PDF tool that allows you to create all kinds of different reports. So if you wanted to create a PDF of your CDP climate report, the tool could do that. If you just wanted to create a report on strategy, you could have all of your frameworks and rating organizations that you're working with, just select the strategy section from each of those frameworks and organizations and just create a report on that. So these reports are great. You can do progress reports. So, you're going into a board meeting, they want to know what type of progress you've made to date. You could easily print out a PDF that would show where you're at in terms of your reporting. So a lot of different ways to use that PDF tool as well.
Okay. And can you give us a sense of the types of companies that your platform can appeal to and work for? Is it scalable across all sizes? Give us a sense of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we just started working with a microcap, new technology company, just went IPO, trying to get their arms around, how to get started in this ESG. Way up to some of our larger companies like AT&T and Lockheed Martin, who have hundreds of users in the system. The system can grow with you. So you can start a very basic program, establish the foundation for your program, and from there you can build on it, all the way up to, all of the frameworks, rating organizations, even embed your own custom metrics into it.
Now, so when you talk about there may be hundreds of users or perhaps thousands at larger companies, multinationals, can multiple users them at the same time working on the same data sets, or how does that work?
Yeah. So they can try, but we actually have a little flag that pops up. So if somebody's in there working on a data request and someone tries to come in at the same time, there'll be a little warning that pops up that says, so-and-so's working in here, give them a few minutes and come back in and try again.
Okay. And then if, I know you mentioned sort of the 4 pillars of the company's philosophy and value. What would you say, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of your customers, what would you say they say is consistently like the greatest value they get from OneReport?
Yeah, it really is. I would say it's the collect and collaboration value point, just being able to assign it out to the right person. One of the features I didn't show is that it's very intuitive to the user. So if somebody's just assigned to complete a couple of data points, when they come into the platform, they're only going to see 2 tabs, and one is their to-do list, basically, and the other is where they go to complete the work. So they're not seen as much as you saw today. They can just go in, say, okay, I have to do this, this, and this, and now I'm out. So make it easier for every user. And then just the ability to get to the right person. Usually when we're talking to prospects and they're telling us, how they're currently managing this type of process, we normally hear spreadsheets and emails, and it's taking a lot of time tracking all of this down and maintaining it.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine. My last question is, sometimes an organization, they feel they have their unique story to tell, right? And using this data plus the narrative that sort of weaves throughout it and explains it helps them do that. Sometimes, they look at the series of frameworks and standards out there, and there's a lot to deal with. And perhaps they're using, in reality, bits and pieces of many of them, if not all of them. So that they may not just be doing a GRI report, but they're pulling from CDP and SASB and the IRC and all that. Is there also any space for a company like that maybe they feel a particular metric is important to their business, and it may not be accounted for in any of the standards or frameworks that are out there? Is there any capacity to add like their own custom data points that they can do? They can place the requests in the system and treat them just like anything else you've already pre-built?
Yeah, we do have the ability to add custom metrics. So, in a recent client that we signed on, they actually have a way that they display things on their web page, and they wanted us to mimic that in terms of, what we set up inside of our system. So we are certainly able to do that for clients.
Great.